Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, we could talk directly about how some of these topics directly impact just how much money someone is going to keep and take out of that closing. You don't want to leave anything on the table. Absolutely. A recent settlement involving the National Association of Realtors has changed how commissions work. So, Barb, what does this really mean for home sellers right now? Good news or bad news?
Well, Richard, if our listeners have sold a home before, the old way of doing it was you would go list a house with a real estate agent. They would charge the total commission, the amount for the listing agent and the amount for the buyer's agent out of one fee, and that agent would share a portion of the commission to the buyer's agent. That's how it used to work. And the amount that was offered was published both in the MLS, and it was also published on Zillow and Realtor.com, so all the buyers could see how much commission was offered. Originally, the theory was that, oh, well, if the buyers know, then they'll understand, if maybe my agent doesn't show me that house, it was sort of like it just set the whole process up for antitrust and price fixing. I remember we took over one listing from another brokerage, and they had offered a really, really low commission on this home, and there were no showings. It wasn't, the home was beautiful. It was actually very nice, but there were no showings because the agents are like, I'm not going to show it. I'm not going to work for 2%. It's a waste of my time, blah, blah, blah. Right. So, yeah. And that's actually against the law. It's called antitrust. So, actually started 10 years ago. We were talking before the show, Richard, about how long a whole lawsuit takes, and the process. That one started 10 years ago, where these home sellers in Chicago said, wait, okay, I pay the whole commission, and out of that, the portion of the commission I'm paying to the buyer's agent, but then they are working against me in the transaction. I'm paying for them to beat me up on price and repairs and threaten to not close at the finish line if I don't get my way or the way I want it. And he goes, it's almost like being sued and having to pay the plaintiff's attorney as well. And so that's what started it. And it was a class action lawsuit. And then when the DOJ started looking into it, they discovered that some of the big box brokerages, I won't say who they are, but most of them are pretty much, had embedded into their training document, hey, you real estate agent, when you list a house, you will not offer less than 2.8%, or the other agents won't show your home. That is antitrust. So then all these lawyers started really getting into the class action lawsuit game, sending out postcards to anybody that sold a home and said, hey, do you want to get that whatever percent commission back that you paid to the buyer's agent? Just join my class action lawsuit. And it started really, there were probably at least 5 or 6 of them. And these lawyers won every time. And these big box brokerages had to write extraordinarily large multi-million-dollar checks. So finally, there was a settlement with the National Association of Realtors in August of 2024. And 2 rules came out of it. One was the buyer agent fee or commission is no longer offered in the MLS. And I remember when it was. When it was, if that buyer closed on the sale, the listing agent had to make sure that buyer got their commission. If they didn't, the agent could take them to arbitration and make them pay. And it was always going to be a losing scenario for the listing agent, no matter what happened. So when this all went away, and basically the new rule was, hey, guess what? Commission is no longer offered anywhere online, anywhere in the MLS. There was some interesting meme images that came out. One of them was a home seller. He was a real estate agent in somewhere in the Midwest that had a big green backyard, and he mowed in the grass 3% with his home for sale, which we're not allowed to do that. So what ended up happening was that in the state of Colorado, added a paragraph to the contract to buy and sell, which is between the buyer and the seller. It's not anything about the agent or the listing agent. And that paragraph says it makes a request from the buyer, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, will you pay my agent X% for the privilege of having my buyer? And it's negotiable now, which is really fun. So a lot of agents ask for 3%. You know, I've seen them ask for more. I've seen them ask for less. It just depends, right? And it's up to the seller as to whether or not they want to pay the buyer agent commission. I had one agent tell me, "Hey, I'm getting told up in Denver that sellers are not paying the buyer agent fee. That's on the buyer. They could price it into the deal, but that's on the buyer." Which so it's really interesting. And the thing that's interesting about it is before that, the agents really weren't trained on how to negotiate. It was almost like this entitlement. If my buyer buys the house, you got to pay me 3%. And I actually had a transaction last year where the seller told me up front, and he goes, "Barb, I'm not willing to pay any more than 2% to the buyer's agent. That's just how I feel about it, and that's what I'm willing to do." I said, "That's fine, it's your choice." So we ended up getting 3 offers on that house. All 3 of them were basically the same. They were 50,000 over asking price. So the seller countered the first offer in which the agent asked for 3%. And the counter proposal did not get signed. So we didn't go under contract. The seller did not go under contract with that buyer. And the only reason was the agent was demanding that the seller pay him 3%, right? There was another buyer willing to say that pay the same price, just as strong of a buyer, and their agent was fine with 2%. And so that buyer got the house. And then 2 weeks later, my client gets a anonymous letter in the mail talking smack about me, and she's all about commission and her open houses and stuff like that. And I can only guess what happened. I'm just guessing, but I think what happened is that agent's buyer did not get the house and they weren't happy and they fired him, right? So it's really short-sighted because now the buyer wanted the house, right? And all of a sudden it was only the agent's fee that meant that the buyer wouldn't get the house in that case. And you can't think of it as a one-off transaction as a real estate agent. You got to think big picture, you know. It's not about just that one transaction. If people are happy with you, they're going to tell their friends and your business is going to grow because of it. Or they might do another. I have a lot of clients that come back to me again and again. So it's not about that one-off deal, and it is negotiable. And you can't be the sticking point between the buyer getting the house based on your commission. And so it's really interesting because it introduces a dynamic that was an entitlement before, and now it's just not. And it's a lot of fun. I had one guy call me the day that the rule changed. I'll never forget. We were actually going to start showing the next day with the open house, a beautiful remodeled home. And the day that it changed, the agent called me, and he was sitting in front of the house in 2 cars, right? He was in the front car because I would have never said this in front of my buyer. And the buyer was in the car behind. The buyer's pointing at the house. "That one, I want to see that one, agent," right? And he called me, he goes, "Is your seller going to pay 3% commission?" And I said, "I don't know. It really depends on the offer. You just put it into the deal." And he goes, "Well, my buyer signed an agreement that my buyer's going to pay me 3%, and he's not willing to pay any difference if the seller doesn't pay it." I said, "Okay." And he goes, "So is he going to pay me 3% or not?" I said, I don't know. I think he has some commission built into the budget." And he goes, "Okay, fine. I'm just going to go show another house." So he took his buyer away from that home that wanted to see that beautiful remodeled home. Now, if you were the buyer, Richard, how would you feel about that?
You know, Barb, we've talked about this before, and I don't
Yeah.
know that buyers and sellers really understand. You've got a fiduciary relationship with the client. And what
Yeah.
I just listened to, don't mean to indict anybody, but that person was not looking out for the client because the
Yeah.
client was sitting there saying, I want to see this house.
Yeah. I got into a text battle with an agent 2 weekends ago, very same subject. She goes, is your seller going to pay 3% commission? And I said, depends on the offer. I don't know. It's the same thing I always say, you know? And she goes, well, you must have something in your agreement about how much the seller is willing to pay the buyer agent. And I said, my agreements are confidential. She goes, well, I'm just going to tell my buyer that your seller is not paying a commission and I'm going to take him somewhere else. I'm like, man, it's just, it's really ignorant and it's unfortunate, but it's 1 month of school to be a real estate agent. There's no job description. There's no how to. So as consumers out there, I'm telling you this so you're aware of it. And if you're a buyer, don't let the agent get in the way. Okay. Just don't do it. You know, press on. If that's a house that you want, make it happen. If you need to fire that agent, okay, that's fine. Move on. I said it. I'll probably get in trouble for it, but that's all right. So that's kind of how it works now. It's a lot of fun. And if you are thinking of making a move, give me a call. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show. And we're talking about commission rules and how they've changed. And next up, we're going to talk about our hot new listings. Richard?
Barb, when it comes to selling, people want to make sure that they get the very most out of that transaction. Don't leave any money on the table at the closing. You are the only person I recommend to do that. And that is because you do know how to market and then you know how to negotiate. Let's talk about some homes that people may just have you doing exactly that for them, your hot new listings.
Absolutely. I have an adorable home in Monte Vista, Colorado, priced in the mid twos, really beautiful ranch style home. Another beautiful townhome in the southwest part of town in School District 12 in Autumn Heights at 274,999. A beautiful patio home. This thing backs to open space with gorgeous views. Massive place, almost 2,800 square feet. In pristine condition at 474,999. An amazing ranch style home. That's the perfect downsize home in Peyton on Cascading Spring, priced at 519,999. This thing is in perfect condition. You don't have to fix anything. We have a beautiful 2-story that backs to open space on Mill Creek Drive in Creekside in the School District 20 at 724,999. A lovely home in Pueblo on Gold King Road, priced at 379,999, and many more. To find out about all of our homes, go to barbhasthebuyers.com and click on featured properties, and you'll be able to see all of our homes online, or give us a call at 719-301-3900. Thank you, Richard, and have a great day.
Likewise to you. Folks, you've been listening to your real estate voice. That is Barb Schlinker, host of the program and owner proprietor of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Hear the program 11 o'clock on Saturdays, just after Code Low, and of course on the podcast as well. Barb, you have a great weekend. Be safe. Look forward to talking to you next week.